Hello, welcome to a new video. Today I will be talking about Robin Hood 2018. Now I was going to make a bigger video and I did film it all, but I just blabbered on too much, I talked too much, I needed to be straight to the point, and that's something I wasn't with the other video. But I'm going to be making a video about why Robin Hood 2018 was a good movie and you will not change your mind. Quick bit of backstory. One of my favourite TV shows is the Robin Hood TV show. I love it. It's one of my favorites. I've watched it so much, and it's great characters, great story, and going into that, I knew that would play an effect. Maybe I'm a bit biased towards it. I'll admit that. I'm not going to deny that, but I still believe there's a good story in there. Okay. So I'm going to quickly say a quick story that I'm used to with the Robin Hood story. I do feel like a lot of people who hate this movie are only used to the Disney Fox animated Robin Hood. And if that's the movie you watch and that's the only one of Robin Hood you've watched, you're probably not going to like this because you're not used to it. I'm not trying to sound patronising there, but as someone who watched the TV show, I was used to a lot of this story. And I'm surprised how much is similar to it. So the story I'm used to, quickly. Robin Hood, he returns from war, has to be injured. He was there with his friend Much. They come back, he's Lord of Locksley, like he was before he left. Still Lord of Locksley. The sheriff is now, he's not just, he's just basic typical bad guy. He's gonna hang some people. Robin decides to save him, and save them even, and while doing so, he now becomes an outlaw because he betrayed the sheriff. First episode, he now has a gang of people that he saved. 4 or 5 people. Much is with him, and then the rest of the series is basically just Robin Hood fighting against the sheriff. And whichever the sheriff's plan is, Robin tries to stop it. He robs from him. He kills he doesn't kill a lot, but he's just a really good character. He's a really good person. His team is a good team, it all loyal to him most of the time. And it's just a lot of fun. Okay, that's the story I'm used to. Now, I've split why this movie is a good movie into 5 sections. And I have I have 5 negatives that I've seen a lot of people say. So I'm going to go through those. I'm also going to do some changes and negatives. This is not a perfect movie for me. There's stuff I would change. But it is a good movie. But before I do that, I'm going to give a quick story of the movie. Spoiler alert, but I just want to make sure people know the typical story. It's going to be really squashed together. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but it's going to be really fast. So it starts off, Robin, he meets Marion. He's a Lord of Locksley, which I really like. That's one of the key bits for me, is Robin is the Lord of Locksley. He gets called to war. He gets drafted to war. He eventually goes there. He's there for 4 years, I think they said. However, while he is at war, he witnesses a son about to get killed. He sees his dad there, who happens to be Little John. Son's about to get killed, about to get executed, beheaded, however you want to word it. Robin jumps in, tries to save him, kind of fails. Son gets killed anyway. Robin gets sent back home. He nearly gets killed, but because he's a lord, Gisborne lets him live. Comes back home, he finds out, Marion's with someone else, the sheriff's really bad now. So him and Little John, who came back with him on the boat, they decide they're going to rob the sheriff. They train, they do all this stuff. Robin becomes Robin Hood, technically. He's not officially Robin Hood, though. He robs from the sheriff now and again. He gives to the poor a couple of times, he gives to Marion. Eventually, they decide they're going to go big, going to rob the place, and I'm skipping a lot here, but eventually Robin Hood, he does a big heist, he kills the sheriff eventually, and I don't want to go into too much detail, I don't want to spoil it, but they will live. He ends up becoming an outlaw at the end, moves to Sherwood. He has loads of men with him who he saved and who joined him, and Will Scarlet gets appointed as the new sheriff. Right, that's basically it. I skipped a lot there, but that's the gist of it. So, 5 reasons why this is a good movie. Number 1, everything is well explained. The backstories, the motives, there's no question marks about anything. With a lot of movies, it's like, oh, why didn't you do that? Why did you do this? Especially with villains, it's what's their motives? This is very easy. Marion and Locksley was taken away from Robin by the sheriff because he got drafted by the sheriff, and because the sheriff chose to announce Robin dead and also take Robin's mansion and his lord stuff, right? So because that, Marion moved on. That is Robin's hate for the sheriff. That's where it begins, really. There's other stuff that he does that goes towards that, such as just being an all-round bad guy, raising the taxes, treating everyone miserably. But you definitely see where his hatred and where his divide from the sheriff comes. And even before you meet the sheriff, you as a viewer is going, this sheriff's a bad guy. Because, you see him, his signature everywhere. Sheriff of Nottingham has drafted you, stuff like that. John had his son killed by Gisborne. That is a very good motive. You know what I'm saying? That's why he chose Robin, because Robin jumped in to save him. He sees Robin as a very good hero, as a leader, because he's seen such a good person in him, someone so unique, one in a million. But John himself, he wants to get revenge, and also he's just lost his son. He needs something to distract him in a weird way, He doesn't want to just sit around, feeling sorry for himself. He wants to do something about it. Even Marion, she has her own little backstory going on. I'll get to that in a minute. Even the sheriff, he's very well developed, I shouldn't know, that's the next one. Even the sheriff, you know exactly what he's doing, why he's doing it. For a lot of people, actually, like, everyone has a reason. Everyone, you know why everyone's doing their thing. There's no questions. I'm saying what I've already said, but I think that's such a key and original thing. In most movies, you're going, why is the villain's just a typical bad guy? He just wants to rule the world. And sometimes even the hero isn't, they're just, oh, it's a hero, he saves people. Robin has a reason to go after the sheriff, other than, I want the money to give to the poor. Number 2 is very closely connects. There's no two-dimensional characters. I mean, when I say no, I mean, obviously there's some secondary main characters that are, but all of the main characters are well developed. The sheriff, he isn't just a typical bad guy who just gets angry, kills a few people, and wants to rule the world. He has reasons for doing what he's doing. You even see him kind of make friends with Robin to begin with. He seems like a genuine person, a really bad person, but he feels like a genuine person. Even Marion, she has her own plot. She's not just a romance, a piece of romance device. She has her own thing going on. She's planned to take down the sheriff on her own, without knowing that Robin is Robin Hood. Just thinking that he's just a casual guy. She's doing her own thing with Friar Tuck. Even stuff like Robin trying to save the son. Don't get me wrong, you would expect a hero to do that, but just little things added in here and there, it makes them feel genuine, and it makes them feel like they're there for a reason, and they're doing what they're doing for an actual reason, instead of just doing it because the writer wants them to. Number 3 is that it's an origin movie. He's not Robin Hood until the end. He's not even called Robin Hood at all, which is kind of insane. I don't know how I felt about that, but they call him the Hood. It's kind of like a superhero in a way. He has 2 alter egos going on. He has the Hood and he has Robin of Locksley, and you kind of see them interact and cross over it, and it's a lot of fun. I feel like a lot of people, including myself, just expected him to be living in Sherwood and doing, with his merry men. But this is the beginning of that. This is just before that happens. So I will get onto it in a minute, but a lot of people don't like that because he never really becomes an outlaw. And I think I kind of agree with it to an extent, and we'll get onto that with the negatives. But I don't think you can mark it harshly because it's what it's setting out to be. It's trying to be an origin story. It's not trying to be the best Robin Hood film. It's trying to set up the best Robin Hood, if that makes sense. That sounds like not a good thing, but it is a good thing. It gets to be a bit more unique. You get to see Robin living 2 lives. You get to see the Hood character kind of being idolized in a way. A legend being brought up around him, without them even knowing his face. A bit like Banksy, I guess. A bit like Banksy. You see the reasoning for him helping the poor, other than the fact of what I've already explained. You see him see Marion tell Tuck, hey, I wish the Hood guy would give money to the poor, not to me. And then that's why he originally does it, because Marion wants him to. So again, everything's just, in my mind, everything's well thought out. They didn't just throw this in because, oh, well, we don't have a reason, let's just make him do this. They have a reason for everything, and so does the characters. And the fact it's an origin story makes it more unique. It makes it a different Robin Hood. He's not at a fair shooting a bow at a target, splitting the arrow. He's becoming Robin Hood, and you get to see that. You get to see him mature and train and make friends. I guess, I don't know. Number four. Number four is that he's not a Gary. I think he's called a Gary Sue. His second mission fails. He goes and does all this stuff. Doesn't get any money. Um, he gets shot a couple of times. At one point he loses his romance. Sure, I guess you knew it was gonna come back together. Um, but he doesn't save the son. This is kind of stuff that typically in a movie, he saves the son. He doesn't ever get shot. All of his missions goes to plan. But this doesn't happen. It's not cliche at all in my mind. It's not cheesy. I would argue as well it's not predictable because Will Scarlet goes bad at the end, and I personally didn't see that happening. Maybe that's just me because in the TV show, Will Scarlet is like one of the best, most wholesome, good guys you could find. So I was not expecting Will Scarlet to become the sheriff of Nottingham at the end of this. But yeah, and then finally, the action for me, I really enjoyed it. It was different. It wasn't the typical war movie. It wasn't the typical James Bond fight scenes. It was something a bit unique because it's bow and arrows. But the reason I do like the action is because it's genuine. Now hold it there, because I know you're gonna be like, no, it's not. It kind of was. They got trained by an actual archer called Lars Anderson. So all the actors actually trained. They could shoot with both hands, or at least I know the men actually definitely could. He could shoot with both hands. He was shooting to a second. The trainer threw two discs up, and he was able to hit both of them with two separate arrows. So the action seems very genuine. It makes you actually be scared of bow and arrows, because I know with a lot of movies like Hunger Games and stuff, they're good with bow and arrows, but deep down they get shot with one arrow, and you're like, ugh. And I know it's just you just think, how did you die that fast with one arrow? But with this, you really fear the arrows, especially at the war scene. There's arrows flying in from all angles. He's covering, and you kind of do fear it a lot. The arrows, in a very good way, and they're very unique with it. These shots and the arrows, and you see an arrow put a candle out, which again I have seen the trainer really do in real life. Just so much thought has gone into it, and for me, it's shot well as in addition. There are some changes. I think the fact that Robin doesn't have his merry men. I know it's an origin story, but I think it needed to have it a little bit, and it kind of did. It kind of did, because everyone teamed up at the end, but it wasn't his merry men. It wasn't his gang. Same with there being no Sherwood Forest until the very, very end of the movie, and also him not being an outlaw. I get it. Like I said, it's an origin story, and I like it's an origin story. I feel like the best scenario is the mission where it fails, where he goes to steal the garden and he gets found and he just nearly gets shot and he has to jump out the window. After that, he gets announced as Robin Hood, right? That's who he is. He's an outlaw because people saw his face. I don't know. Then he has to move to Sherwood because he can't stay in Locksley, right? We have a couple of people who team up and they're like, no, I'm with you, Robin. They go and live with him. They're his merry men, right? We could have March and Alan and Dale come and fight with him. And then the rest of the movie is basically exactly the same. But the shots we saw him at the at his house, the abandoned house, it's just in Sherwood. And I think it would just add a lot more and it would feel a lot more like Robin Hood. I still like it a lot, and I feel like if they made a second one, the second one would be almost perfect Robin Hood movie. But that's the only thing that would really change. One more thing I would say actually is that he should have got called Robin Hood at one point. There's a point where he goes, "I am not the Hood." No. There's a point where he goes, "I might be the Hood. I might be Robin of Locksley. You can call me whatever," or something. He says something along those lines. That would be the perfect point for him. You might not even have to say Robin Hood, but he could be like, "I am Robin of the Hood," or something like. He combined. He's like, "Look, I'm not one of this one. I'm not one of this one. I'm both. I am. They're the same person, That would have been kind of a cool moment. Although I do appreciate it might have been a bit cheesy, it might have been too cringy, like in Fantastic Four when it's like, someone says fantastic and then Mr. Fantastic is like, say that again. And it's like, no, go away. Go away. So, that's why I like the movie. I think it was really good. I don't even think I've done it justice there. You know, I thought the humor was very well done. For me, it's not laugh out loud humor. It doesn't make me laugh out loud like a comedy would. But maybe it's just a different type of humor most people don't get. But for me, I thought it was very well done. I didn't think the acting was too bad. I thought the chemistry between Marion and Robin was decent. And overall, I would say it's a decent movie. I would give it maybe a 7 or 8 out of 10. I think to give it below a 5 is unfair. But I would also say giving it a 10 is too much, definitely. However, the 5 points that I found with the reviews, I've read 4 or 5 of them. I don't want to read too many, because all 4 or 5 said the exact same 5 points. They didn't always say the 5 points, but they only ever said a couple of the 5 points. You know, there was never any other points they made. One, it's modernized, which honestly, I don't get why that ruins it. I don't know why that's a bad thing. Like, basically they were saying the clothing wasn't accurate to that year or whatever it was, that era. They were saying, you know, just it's modernized. I don't know. I'm trying to explain what modernized to you, but for me, it wasn't too bad, and it also made the movie better. You know, if Robin Hood's just in like rags and stuff, it's a lot of crap, isn't it? They want him to look as best as possible. I don't think it being modernized ruins it at all. They said the acting was bad, which I would definitely disagree with. Sometimes maybe it's over the top. I wouldn't say it was ever cheesy or predictable at all. And I definitely wouldn't say the acting is bad. I guess some characters I could argue maybe, but for the most part I would say they were convincing. Definitely convincing. Especially Robin and Marion. I genuinely saw 2 people say that they were trying to copy Game of Thrones but didn't do it in a good way. Which I don't agree with. I think they were expecting something like Game of Thrones where there's a lot of gore, a lot of deaths, a lot of, you know, blood, and they didn't get that, and now they're disappointed. I think that's what it was, because specifically what I remember was saying it was Game of Thrones, but a more gritty version that they were trying to copy and influence, and they said it as if it was a really bad thing, and I don't think it is a bad thing. I don't think it's too gritty. I think it's unfair to compare it to the King Arthur thing from last year, because I hated that movie, and I love this movie, and there's a big difference, and I love the King Arthur story as well. So it's not that I love Robin Hood and I don't like King Arthur. I like them both a lot. And I hated that movie last year. So I would say it's an unfair comparison. And the last one is it's not a typical story. It's not the typical Robin Hood story. I saw a lot of people say. Which again, I guessed that it would be about Robin Hood Disney beforehand. And a lot of people seem to be disappointed. It's not. You know, he doesn't live in Sherwood. He doesn't have his merry men. He doesn't go to the fair. Stuff like that. And for me, I think that's very unfair because it's an origin story. It was never trying to be a typical Robin Hood movie, and it sets a perfect typical Robin Hood movie up. You know, the ending is so good when Will Scarlet is now sheriff, and then Robin Hood shoots a bow through shoots an arrow through the post and attaches it to the wall. That's such a Robin Hood scene. Where he's like, welcome sheriff, or I can't remember what he says, and he shoots it. It's so well done. They also said the CG was bad, which I don't think is a fair thing at all. Don't get me wrong, it's not convincing. It's not like you know, the dinosaurs from Jurassic Park where they're so well done you kind of have to check a couple of times to see if it's fake. You can kind of tell it's CG, but I don't think that makes it bad CG, because you know there's scenes in The Flash or Doctor Who where you know it's not real. You can just tell it's not real. But it doesn't take you out of the movie, it doesn't take you out of the TV show, because it's good enough that it's not fake looking. Even though you can tell it's fake, it's not fake looking. I think there's a big difference there. But genuinely, I couldn't find any other negatives other than those 5 or 6. And for me, for those to be the only negatives, and for people to be rating like a 1 and 2. I've seen people genuinely rating 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s. That's unfair to me. And for me, it's a good movie. It's a good Robin Hood movie, and it sets up a perfect Robin Hood movie. That's it for this episode, guys. I will be doing an episode about Doctor Who, and why it's the worst season ever. Other than that, thank you for watching. I've been Jonas. I'll see you next time.